Well, welcome to this week's newsletter. Today is March 25th. It's actually Seward's Day, so thank you to Secretary of State Seward for advocating for the purchase of Alaska from Russia. It's also the 11th week of the legislative session. So just wanted to give you a brief overview of things that we'll be doing in the Senate this coming week. But first, I wanted to call your attention to a state land auction that is happening. It's auction number 486. You can find information about this on the Department of Natural Resources website, the Division of Mining, Land, and Water. This central map here shows you that the land offerings are located all over the state. So you might be interested in taking a look at those. I've looked at some of these in the past, and sometimes they can be challenging parcels to get to. You need some way to get into the backcountry, but nevertheless wanted to draw your attention to that. The Senate has been working hard since January 15th, and we haven't let up. Today in the Senate Finance Committee, we heard a presentation on the WWAMI program. So that's Washington, Wyoming, Alaska, Montana, and Idaho. Those 5 states have partnered to share medical education program. In other words, physician education. So that was an interesting meeting. Tomorrow, we're going to hear funding considerations related to K-12 education. And then we're going to be talking about some permitting and things like that, land conveyances. That's Senate Finance this coming week. Senate Judiciary continues to work on crime bills, and they're also going to probably be concluding their hearing on Senate Joint Resolution 6. This is a resolution from the governor, from Governor Dunleavy, placing a constitutional amendment on our ballot. The constitutional amendment would provide that, asking you if you, as citizens, support a spending limit for the state of Alaska. So that's what the Judiciary Committee is looking at. After they've looked at that bill, they will forward it on to the Finance Bill, who will look at what that would look like in terms of how the legislature would work with the spending limit being proposed. They're also in Judiciary finishing up work on the 2 bills the governor has offered that would pay back the previous shortened or lessened permanent fund dividend. So important meetings there. In state affairs, they are looking also at Senate Joint Resolution 4. This comes from the governor also, and it's another constitutional amendment, and that would require that you, as the citizens, vote on any taxes that might be proposed. Any taxes. So if the legislature approves this, the Senate is looking closely at it, it would go on the ballot in 2020. And then there's a third constitutional amendment from the governor, and this also is in state affairs this coming week, and that pertains to putting the permanent fund dividend itself in the Constitution. So those are just a few interesting things happening there. In resources, we're looking at some water issues, also some commercial fishery issues. In the Health Committee, we have a bill that would repeal the Certificate of Need law we have in this state. So you may not know this, but no medical facilities of substantial size can be built unless state government approves it. And the part of state government that approves it is the commissioner of the Department of Health. So this is called a Certificate of Need. A healthcare provider or a hospital has to apply for a Certificate of Need to build a new facility of substantial size. So just something to be aware of. And then there's an alcohol bill, the bill that would rewrite our alcohol legislation that determines how alcohol is sold, how it's taxed, things like that. That is in the Labor and Commerce Committee this week. In fact, Senator Machicki, who is our Meet the Senator of the week, is a sponsor of that bill. So lots of really substantial work going on, continuing on in the Senate. So today, as I said, was March 25th. Today's Seward's Day. And the Senate passed a bill on the floor today. It's the emergency appropriation for earthquake damage. So this is called a supplemental bill. That means it's additional spending in this in this fiscal year. So the fiscal year began July 1st of 2018. It will end June 30th of 2019. And there's a piece that we didn't have in that budget, and that pertains to the earthquake we just had. So this bill will provide an additional $133 million for earthquake funding for roads and state buildings, things like that. $30 million of that money is state money. All the rest of it is federal money. There's also a piece in here, $7.9 million for fire suppression. Now you might wonder, fire suppression, what does that have to do with earthquakes? Well, it's actually a second subject. We're observing a rather dry spring. You're noticing, I mean, to me, it seems like breakup is happening pretty early this year. So the concern is that we might have a lot of forest fires. So this provides extra money in case we have a lot more fires. So just wanted to let you know this bill did pass the Senate today. It passed unanimously. So it goes on now to the House. Hopefully they will approve it quickly, because by April 1st, we believe that all the earthquake emergency funds will be used up. So this really needs to pass soon. Thanks so much for listening again today. We'll see you next week.